Good afternoon. My name is Maryam Abdal Karim. Welcome to my presentation for EDLA 2104, Teaching Language Arts in Primary School. Today, I am going to discuss the West Indian language situation. In this PowerPoint, I will be covering strategies available to teachers to support students' language development. Before I do so, I would like to briefly discuss the importance and definition of both Standard English and English Creole. Many pupils in the classroom speak Creole as their first language. While teachers must accept students' native languages, they must also assist them in becoming proficient users of Standard English. The issue is to motivate competent speakers of a language capable of meeting their fundamental linguistic requirements to learn Standard English. Any attempt to devalue Creole may impede the adoption of Standard English. However, Standard English can be presented as an alternative language that serves specific purposes. Brings us to the next slide where we clearly define the terms Standard English and English Creole. Webster Dictionary defines Standard English as English that with respect to spelling, grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary is substantially uniform, though not devoid of regional differences. Also, English Creole as a language is one that is evolved from a pidgin but serves as a native language of a speech community. In the next slide, we will now introduce the language development strategies that was mentioned above. There are 4 strategies we are going to explore in this presentation. They are the audiolingual method, the communicative language approach, also known as CLT, the lexical approach, and my personal favorite, scaffolding. Strategy is audiolingual. Audiolingual is taught in a specific order. Learners begin by listening to the target language and then progress to speaking, reading, and writing skills, as Richard and Rogers said in 2001. The goal of this method is to follow for error-free repetition of the specific term. As a result, it relies on dialogues and drills. For example, in the classroom, teachers can implement dialogue to assist with students' language development. Teachers can have a dialogue in Standard English with the students and have them imitate or repeat what was said in the dialogue. Another method, dictation, also has a major role as students are required to match the writing to words orally given. This teaches them how to write and speak properly all together. And lastly, and most importantly, is memorization. This can be learned through oral and written spelling quizzes. It is essential that children learn to spell and pronounce the words that are used to form proper sentences in their oral and written vocabulary. Moving on to the second strategy. This strategy is called the communicative language teaching approach, also known as CLT approach. The CLT emphasis is on creating realistic context and expressing oneself using functional language. The teacher should provide opportunities for students to communicate in the target language in authentic and meaningful situations. Drills like the audiolingual method are used in CLT. However, these drills are more meaningful because the learners construct responses rather than repeating responses provided by the teacher. Some methods in CLT are 1. Reading out loud. This allows children to hear the words that come from their mouth, which helps with memorization. It also repeats phrases, words, and properly formulates sentences that can be reused when a student is writing or speaking. It also gives the student confidence to speak freely and helps form their letters and properly pronounce words. Most stories, articles, or magazines are written in standard English. This method would definitely help develop a student's language. The second method is real-life scenarios. Teachers can use a wide range of tailored exercises and meaningful objectives to promote meaningful connections. Students might role-play situations based on everyday life, such as talking about interests and popular culture, or simply retelling the story of a book or movie they recently enjoyed. Instead of teaching grammar rules and structure, the emphasis is on using real-world scenarios to give students practice using language for context and content. Students can strengthen their communication skills with aid of strategies including modeling, repetition, peer work, and group work. And the last one is role play. Activities that allow students to work in pairs or groups are most effective. This simulates realistic communication and promotes fluency over grammatical competence. For example, students could collaborate to play a game in which they must describe an object to each other in English so that their peers can guess what it is. Working with students not only encourages meaningful language engagement, but it also has a potential to gamify the classroom and incentivize active participation. Our next strategy is one that is familiar to us the most. It is the lexical approach. The lexical approach emphasizes developing proficiency with words and word combinations over grammar, because grammar is not absolutely necessary for communicating and words are. Thus, rather than learning grammar rules, the grammatical rules are embedded in the collocations, which should make communication in the target language easier. For example, sentence structuring. This is important because students learn to form sentences using the subject-verb-object agreement. They also learn to use their tenses when applying verbs to sentences. Past tense, present tense, and future tense is imperative when communicating. This will help the listener know the context of the conversation. Another important method is word combination, also known as lexical chunks. Chunking is a memory-enhancing technique. By grouping commonly co-occurring words and treating them as one larger whole, the brain is able to process more information. Chunking allows your class to cover a lot of material in a short amount of time. Your students are dealing with chunks rather than individual processing each word in a sentence, what each word means, and how each grammatically relates to the word next to it. Instead of learning one word at a time, you're learning one phrase at a time. Last, and what I consider most important in lexical approach, is essay writing. After learning how to construct your sentence and combine words, writing an essay in standard English becomes the practical assessment for students. Students write how they speak, but once they are given suitable structures and strategies are properly implemented, writing in standard English becomes easier for students. Moving on to our last strategy, which is my personal favorite, scaffolding. Vygotski's scaffolding theory focuses on a student's ability to learn information with the assistance of a more knowledgeable individual. Scaffolding, when used effectively, can assist a student in learning content that they would not have been able to process on their own. There are 3 steps to scaffolding. 1. Learning with guided assistance from the teacher. This includes everything that was mentioned in all the other strategies before, where the teacher provides guidance and correction towards new learners. Students' first language is important, but because standard English is required in the professional world, teachers are to shape students' speech where they can maneuver from English Creole to standard English. The next step will be learning with less guided assistance. This is the middle zone of proximal development. Students reach a point where they do 50% of the work without assistance and they start implementing what was taught in previous lessons and corrections. For example, children can go from "that is she thing" to "that is her own." There may be little errors between, but not as much when they started. And the last step of scaffolding, where teachers are most proud of, is acquiring new skill without any assistance. This is where students use all the information and guidance that they learned over the course of times and implement it into their work. Students will be able to form an entire sentence or narrate an entire story in standard English. Because of the scaffolding teachers provide when a student is at the start of their development and the drills that are done for memorizations, students can become independent learners on their own. This brings us to the end of the strategies that can help support students' language development in the classroom. To conclude what was said here, here are some points that are significant to support language development in the classroom as a teacher. Drills, which you can use, helps with memorization of words, phrases, and the rules of forming sentences. Role play, where children can express themselves in standard English and provide real-life scenarios through standard English communication. 3. The word combination. This again is where children learn to combine words, phrases, and sentences and are able to complete an entire standard English essay on their own. And lastly, scaffolding, where teachers build children up from not knowing much and also needing a lot of help to then acquiring the skill independently. Thank you so much for listening.